Hello, welcome to my channel, Another Bibliophile Reads. My name is Greg, and I am here to give an update on week 14 of my 100 book challenge. Now, if you're not familiar with this challenge, this is where I've been challenged to read 100 books that I already own before I can buy another book. This challenge was originally created by the evil mastermind Ali at his channel Criminale. And I am doing quite well, as you will soon see. But before we get on to the books that I have read this week, let me say that I have finished reading my 6 nominations for the Book 2 prize in translated literature. It was only a total of 1,601 pages, so it's really not that difficult. The longest book was 459 pages, and the shortest book was 188 pages. Now, I have not submitted my voting form yet. I have decided what is the last book on the list. I am pretty sure I know what is going to be the top of my list, and the other books are in between. I'm pretty sure I know the second, so the other books are just going to be a bit in between and just decide what order I want to place them in. And I will probably try to do that tomorrow and get them in before March starts. So I get a head start and get that completed. Now for the books that I have read this month, this week. And I have read a few of them. The first was for February Fantasy Stories, and that was The Case of Charles Dexter Ward by H.P. Lovecraft. I counted this as an urban fantasy because it's set in the city of Provincetown, Rhode Island, and it revolves around an evil wizard who is an ancestor of Charles Dexter Ward. And Charles Dexter Ward becomes fascinated with his ancient cousin, Joseph Curwen. And let's just say things go awry once he starts investigating what his wizard cousin has done. Now, I was commenting about this book with Michael K. Vaughan over on a Voxer group, and he mentioned that essentially this book is a first draft, that he wrote it, he threw it into a shelf or a drawer, and then forgot about it and published it. It is not my favorite Lovecraft story. It has a lot of potential to it, but it just does not deliver. There is one great scene where a character is investigating a basement and finds something very curious in that basement. And that was my favorite part of the book. Other than that, if you're a Lovecraft fan, you're going to have to read it. But if you're not, you can skip it. After that, I listened to an audiobook. And this is an audiobook that I have already read before as an ebook version. And this is The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. And this is getting a lot of commentary on Read Banned Books 2022. This book was banned for a lot of sexual references. It does get a little sexually explicit at parts. I personally don't find it too explicit to be distasteful. It explores women's sexuality, especially a Black woman's sexuality, and I guess that's very upsetting to some people. But it's a good book. Jack at the Rambling Raconteur called it one of the best debut novels in American literature of the 20th century. I'm not sure I would rank it that high, but it is a very good debut novel. It focuses around a child named Cola, who is basically becoming a woman, and she gets pregnant, and she considers herself very, very ugly. And she dreams that she would be beautiful if she had blue eyes. And the book explores what is ugliness. What does it mean for someone to think someone else is ugly? And in the afterword to this book, the author Toni Morrison, who also narrated the audiobook, said she's not quite satisfied with this book, that it was a little too complicated. It made the reader work too hard in some places. Now, I don't mind working hard for my literature, so I think it is just fine. And it is a good book to pick up if you are looking for a banned book to read. After that, I read one of my BookTube Prize nominations, and that was Summer Light and Then Comes Night by John Kalmon Stefansson, and this was translated from the Icelandic. That's all I can say because I'm a judge. After that, I read another audiobook. This is a book that I have in print copy in the Library of America, and that is Cain by Jack Shaefer. And this is considered one of the best Westerns written in the early part of the 20th century. It was made into a very famous movie. I have not seen that famous movie, but I did enjoy this Western. It's very different Western from like the Edge series, which was extreme graphic violence in every chapter. In this chapter, the author really has to work up to his gunfights and build on the characters and describe why this is necessary and what the villains are doing. But still, I found it a little disconcerting that it was just a little too admiring of the gun, and that the gun is the solution to solve problems. But of course, you're reading a Western, and that's really what you have to expect when you're reading a Western. And I should not put my biases against firearms into the novel. The novel was highly entertaining, and I can recommend it to just about anyone. After that, I read Howl by Allen Ginsburg. I wound up reading the whole poem Howl for Poetry Thursday last week, and after I finished reading that, I really didn't have a whole lot more to read in the book, so I finished reading the book. Howl is a magnificent poem. As I said, it has a peculiar beauty. It was also read for Banned Books 2022. I highly recommend anyone picking up this collection of poems who likes modern American poetry and wants to be familiar with banned American literature. So I can highly recommend that. After that, I read Trust by Domenico Starnone. This is a book translated from the Italian, and it was for the BookTube Prize, so I can say nothing else about it. After Trust, I read Elric of Melniboné by Michael Moorcock on audiobook. And what I did was with one of my pre-purchase Audible credits, I purchased an omnibus collection of the first 4 books of the Elric series. And I'm reading these as individual books. And I originally, in high school, was very enamored with the Elric series. It was probably my favorite literature in high school. As I grew older, it became less fascinating to me. About 12 years ago, I did start rereading the series. I really liked the first book. That's the first one I just reread, Elric of Melniboné. The other books in the series, I was less satisfied with. So now I'm going in to reading the other books, and we'll see if I can maintain my interest. Now, the audiobook is really perfect for this kind of literature. It's very simply written, and it works very well as an audible narrative. So I would highly recommend Elric of Melniboné. He is a classic anti-hero. You would not want him as a friend. After that, I read The Bridge on the River Kwai. This is a book that has been sitting on my shelf for who knows how many years. I picked up at a used bookstore somewhere down the way, and it just sat there, and I have never read it. The only reason I read this book is because of the 100 book challenge. If I had not been on this challenge, in all likelihood, I never would have read this book, and this book would have sat on my shelves until the day I died, and whoever is taking care of my state, cleans out the book. I'm not sure it's a great book. It supposedly was a huge best-selling novel back in the day. It was made into a very famous movie. I am sure I saw the movie back when I was a kid. I really don't remember much of the movie other than they have this whistling theme song. My wife saw me reading this and she started trying to get that tune out of her head, and it reminded me of it. And yeah, that's all I remember of the movie. Now, parts of this book just got off on the wrong start for me. It is set during World War II. The British are prisoners of the Japanese, and the Japanese order the British to build a bridge over the River Kwai. But the commanding officer goes to the Japanese and says, officers cannot work with enlisted men. We are their leaders. We have to lead them in building of this bridge. And the Japanese commander at first was totally against it. And he kicked the crap out of this officer and said, work with your men. But the officer stuck to his guns and said, officers do not work with enlisted men. Now, I know this is true to history. I just find it a little disturbing that an officer could consider himself that much above a regular Army Joe. I'm sure they're not called Army Joes in the British Army, but you get the point, that he considered himself above his men. And in the book, he proves himself right, saying that the officers are supposed to lead men, and they get this bridge built much faster and much better through their leadership. I'm not sure I buy that. Maybe it was true, maybe it's not. In this day and age, it's just a little disconcerting for me. It's an all right book. Pick it up one day if you see it used, it's fine, but not too highly recommended. And after that, I read this little collection of short stories. The short stories is called Market Adjustment and Other Tales of Avarice by Anderson Prunty. This was published in 2009 by Cargo Cult Press, which has gone out of business since then, and they only published like 10 books. But this is a limited edition book. As it says, this is limited to 106 copies, and I own copy number 56. So I'm not sure if anyone can go out and buy this. It probably is for sale somewhere on YouTube somewhere. But it also comes with a bit of monopoly money with a sentence written on the bottom and an additional signature by the author. Now, these are horror short stories, but they're considered bizarro horror stories. And that is just sort of like an offshoot of surrealist writing. And the first story is set in October 28th, 1929. So that is right in the middle of the Great Depression. It is a story of a character named Murphy who has recently lost his family due to home foreclosures, and he's living on the streets. But he has found, let's just say, a voodoo cult in the sewers of New York. And he is going out to seek vengeance on a bank president. And it just gets strange. It's not bad, but it is writing strange things happening for the sake of writing strange things happening. I guess that is the bizarro style. I enjoyed it. I would never highly recommend it too much, but this again has sat on my shelf since 2009. And if it had not been for the 100 book challenge, I never would have read this book. Probably not. So that brings me up to 85 books completed. I can see the finish line for the 100 book challenge. Now, there is one problem coming up in March for finishing this challenge. War and Peace from March of the Mammoths. I really want to try to read this book in March. I don't know if I will be able to complete it in March. It is not only 1,399 pages long, but if you can look at the print, that print is tiny. This is like a page and a half of a regular book. Maybe not a page and a half, maybe a page and a quarter. So it is a freaking long book. But I am going to try to finish it in March. I'm also going on a trip to the Dominican Republic. Leaving here on March 27th, or the 26th. So I actually want to finish that before then. So I have to cut off a few days to get that done. And the reason is I don't want to haul this book on a plane to the Dominican Republic. Also in March, I am participating in March Mystery Madness, where I'll be reading 2 Sherlock Holmes stories, and two novels, The Study in Scarlet and The Hound of the Baskervilles. I have a previous video where I asked viewers to pick my other 2 books. I have not tallied up the totals. I will probably do that today or tomorrow. But last time I checked, Mickey Spillane was the winner. So I'll be reading Arthur Conan Doyle and Mickey Spillane in March and Tolstoy. That's all I'm committing to. That's enough. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good day. Goodbye.